Welcome back to NoMigo channel. Today is February 3rd, 2026. First up, the biggest story of the day, Elon Musk is basically building a vertically integrated AI space social media empire. This news comes from Wired's artificial intelligence section, published February 2nd, 2026, with additional coverage from Ars Technica and Engadget Tech News the same day. According to Wired, SpaceX has officially acquired xAI, the AI company Musk launched to compete with OpenAI and others. Remember, xAI already absorbed the X, the social network formerly known as Twitter, last year. So by rolling xAI into SpaceX, Musk now has rockets, satellites, an AI lab, and a massive social media and data firehose all under one roof. Wired frames this as Musk tightening his grip on technologies that shape national security, social media, and AI all at once. That's a lot of leverage in one person's hands. Ars Technica adds a wild detail. SpaceX has filed plans for an absolutely gigantic constellation up to 1 million satellites to power xAI in space. They describe this as not just the next chapter but the next book in the SpaceX xAI mission. Engadget Tech News goes deeper into what Musk is actually trying to do. The plan is to build orbital data centers in space to run AI models. Musk claims, in his own words, that global electricity demand for AI simply cannot be met with terrestrial solutions, and that moving AI compute into orbit is the only logical solution. In practical terms, here's what that means. SpaceX launches a massive new generation of satellites. Those satellites host data centers in orbit. xAI runs its models there. Starlink and direct-to-device communications beam that AI back down to Earth. And because xAI already owns X, that social platform becomes the real-time data and distribution layer for this whole system. Musk is pitching this as an ambitious, vertically integrated innovation engine on and off Earth, combining AI, rockets, space internet, mobile connectivity, and a global information platform. He's also tying this to his usual long-term pitch, that the capabilities from space-based AI data centers will help fund self-growing bases on the Moon and a civilization on Mars. Engadget also notes a couple of important business angles. SpaceX is reportedly planning an IPO later this year that could value the company at over $1 trillion, according to Bloomberg. There have even been internal discussions about a possible future merger with Tesla. Tesla has already invested around $2 billion into xAI. So you can see the shape of this. Rockets, electric cars, satellites, AI, and social media, potentially merging into one giant Musk-centric tech stack. Of course, there's a darker angle here too. This is all happening in domains that are core to national security and information control. Wiring AI, military-relevant space infrastructure, and a global social network together under one private company raises huge questions about governance, regulation, and concentration of power, exactly the concerns Wire highlights. Now, while Musk is trying to move AI into orbit, governments back on Earth are already using AI in much more targeted and political ways. This next story comes from Wired Artificial Intelligence, published February 2nd, 2026. Wired reports that since March 2025, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services (HHS) has been using AI tools from Palantir and a startup called Credo AI to scan and filter federal grants for perceived alignment with DEI and gender ideology. In other words, the same kind of AI analytics tools that are usually pitched for fraud detection or risk analysis are being used to identify and potentially penalize grant applications that reference diversity, equity, inclusion, or gender-related topics. Palantir is already known for its deep ties to government data and surveillance. Now, paired with Credo AI, these systems are reportedly being used to algorithmically flag language and concepts in grant proposals that political appointees don't like. The key takeaway: AI isn't just about cool coding assistants and chatbots. It's also quietly becoming part of the machinery that decides who gets funding, whose research is supported, and which organizations are effectively punished for certain values or language. That has massive implications for academic freedom, public health programs, and civil rights. So while Musk is centralizing AI power in the private sector, this story shows how governments are weaponizing AI in policy and culture wars. Let's shift to something a bit more hopeful, AI for biodiversity and conservation. This news comes from the Google AI blog, published February 2nd, 2026. Google's blog outlines how scientists are working on an incredibly ambitious project, sequencing the genome of every known species on Earth. The idea is to build a comprehensive genetic library that can help preserve endangered species and understand biodiversity before it disappears. AI comes into play in several ways. Accelerating genome assembly. AI models can help reconstruct full genomes faster and more accurately from raw sequencing data. Identifying genetic diversity. AI can spot patterns that show which populations are at risk, which traits are critical for survival, and how species might adapt to climate change. Prioritizing conservation. With limited resources, AI can help figure out which species and ecosystems are most urgent to protect based on genetic uniqueness and vulnerability. The big picture here. While we're building giant AI data centers in orbit, we're also using AI to preserve the code of life down here on Earth. It's a nice counterbalance to some of the more dystopian stories. Speaking of tools that change how we build things, let's talk about AI agents for coding. This news comes from Engadget Tech News, published February 2nd, 2026. Engadget reports that OpenAI is bringing its Codex coding app to Mac, and it's getting a serious upgrade with multi-agent abilities. Originally, Codex was basically OpenAI's answer to Claude Code, a coding assistant that can write and edit code for you, but the new macOS app turns it into something closer to a little AI software team. Here's how Engadget describes it. Codex can now manage multiple AI assistants that work together on complex tasks. For example, OpenAI used Codex to create a Mario Kart-style racing game from scratch. Multiple cars, 8 tracks, power-ups, and all the visual assets. One model handled generating art via GPT image, another wrote the game code, and the Codex coordinated the whole workflow, acting as designer, developer, and QA tester. To make this less overwhelming, the app introduces a skills section. Skills are basically prepackaged workflows, instructions, resources, and scripts that tell Codex how to connect to tools, run tasks, and follow your team's preferences. There's also an automation section to schedule repetitive tasks, things like daily bug triage, summarizing CI failures, writing release notes, or scanning for issues. OpenAI says internally they are already using automations to offload a lot of boring engineering chores to Codex. For now, they are letting ChatGPT free and Go users try Codex for a limited time, but at the same time, Engadget notes that OpenAI is doubling rates for Plus and Pro subscribers, which raises questions about how sustainable these tools will be for individual developers. So Codex is about orchestrating multiple AI agents to build and maintain software, and Google, on the other side, is taking a slightly different but complementary approach. This next story comes from MarkTech Post AI News, published February 2nd, 2026. MarkTech Post reports that Google has released Conductor, an open-source preview extension for the Gemini CLI. Conductor is all about turning AI coding from a messy chat experience into a structured, context-driven workflow. Here's the key idea. Instead of just prompting Gemini in random chats, Conductor stores your project's knowledge directly in your repo as versioned Markdown files. That includes product docs, technical decisions, architecture notes, and work plans. Then, Gemini agents read from those Markdown files to guide their behavior, instead of relying on whatever you happen to remember to type into a prompt. So, Conductor becomes a kind of project brain. It orchestrates agentic workflows for coding and refactoring. It uses your actual source of truth, those Markdown files under version control, to stay aligned with your team's decisions. And because it's part of the CLI, it fits into developer workflows rather than replacing them. If you connect this with OpenAI's Codex news, you can see a clear trend. 2026 is shaping up to be the year of multi-agent, workflow-aware AI coding tools. OpenAI is bundling agents into a Mac app. Google is wiring agents directly into your repo and CLI. Both are trying to move from chat with a bot to let a coordinated set of agents help run your software development lifecycle. But not everyone is excited about AI being baked into everything. Some people just want an off switch. This next piece comes from Gizmodo Tech News, published February 2nd, 2026. Gizmodo reports that Mozilla is adding a literal off switch for AI features in Firefox. The summary is short and sweet. Flip the switch. The message here is pretty clear. As AI features creep into browsers, things like AI search summaries, sidebar assistant, and smart recommendations, Mozilla wants to give users a simple, explicit way to turn all of it off. That aligns with Firefox's long-standing privacy-focused branding, transparency, control, and user choice. In a world where companies are racing to shove AI into every product, a browser that says you can just not have this is a strong signal. It also speaks to a growing segment of users who are uncomfortable with on-by-default AI data collection or hallucinated content in critical interfaces like the browser. Now, let's look at what happens when you go too far in the other direction and let AI build everything for you without enough human oversight. This story comes from Engadget Tech News, published February 2nd, 2026. Engadget reports on Moltbook, a social network built for AI agents to post, chat, and interact, basically a Reddit-style forum where bots hang out. That's already a pretty strange concept. But it gets worse. Cybersecurity firm Wiz discovered that Moltbook had a major vulnerability that exposed around 1.5 million API authentication tokens, about 35,000 email addresses, private messages between agents, and unauthenticated users could allegedly edit live posts on the platform. So how did this happen? According to Engadget and a Wiz blog post they cite, Moltbook's founder bragged on X that he didn't write one line of code and just directed an AI assistant to create the whole platform. Wiz describes the whole site as vibe-coded, basically built by AI with minimal serious security engineering. The result: human credentials were exposed. There's no reliable way to know whether any given post was authored by a real AI agent or a human pretending to be one. Wiz concludes that the revolutionary AI social network was largely humans operating fleets of bots. This is a perfect cautionary tale for the Codex and Conductor era. Yes, multi-agent AI systems can build apps, games, and maybe even browsers from scratch. But if you don't have rigorous human review, especially for security and privacy, you can end up shipping an impressive-looking but fundamentally unsafe product. So while the tools for agentic development are getting more powerful, Moltbook is a reminder that AI did it is not a free pass on basic engineering discipline. Finally, let's talk about making AI cheaper and more efficient to run, because all of these stories, Musk's orbital data centers, coding agents, AI browsers, rely on one thing: inference costs. This last item comes from a blog post highlighted on Hacker News under AI topics, published February 2nd, 2026 by Triage Security, titled Delta, Cut LLM Inference Costs 30-60% with Lossless Compression. According to the Triage Sec blog, Delta is a technique for compressing large language models in a lossless way for inference, meaning you can reduce the compute and memory costs of running a model by 30-60%, but you don't degrade the model's output quality, at least according to their benchmarks. Details are on triage-sec.com, but the core takeaway is infrastructure and optimization research is quietly making it much cheaper to serve big models at scale. That has direct implications for everything from Musk's dream of space-based AI data centers to consumer tools like Codex and Gemini, where the business model lives or dies on how much each token costs to generate. So if you zoom out over today's stories, there's a clear pattern. At the top, we have mega actors like Elon Musk trying to vertically integrate AI with rockets, satellites, and social media, even moving compute into orbit to escape Earth's energy constraints. Governments are deploying AI in subtle but powerful ways, like HHS using Palantir and Cradle AI to algorithmically police grants for DEI or gender ideology, blending AI with culture war politics. Big tech companies are pushing agentic AI for developers, OpenAI's Codex app on Mac and Google's Conductor for Gemini CLI, trying to turn AI into a reliable teammate instead of a chat toy. At the same time, companies like Mozilla are drawing a line and saying, you should be able to turn this off, reflecting growing user skepticism. And then the Moltbook incident is the reality check. Just because AI can build a platform doesn't mean it will build a secure, trustworthy one. Human responsibility doesn't go away. Underneath all of this, infrastructure work like Delta's lossless compression is quietly making it cheaper and easier to run these models everywhere, from your laptop to low-orbit satellites. You've been watching Nomic channel. If you found this roundup useful, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next wave of AI news, because at this pace, the future isn't just arriving fast, it's being refactored in real time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.